Hello everybody, today we're gonna look at the game of Nodirbek Zadorov with 98.7 accuracy. So let's see. We start with e4, c5 to Sicilian defense, and the d6, so this is probably gonna be a Najdorf, and it would be a Najdorf if Rapport would have played a6, but instead he develops the knight, so it's the classical, and Nodirbek goes for a bit of a sideline with the bishop coming out to c4. Most of the time it comes. Sometimes you take or you develop it to e2, but now he goes to c4. So e6, so you plug in this bishop, so it doesn't have a target. Now the other bishop gets developed, and now this move a6, because he doesn't want one of the knights to go to that square. The bishop drops back for a potential d5, but probably a potential b5. And now Rapport says, give that bishop to me, I want to get the bishop pair. And Nodirbek can't hang on to the bishop pair because after this check he only helps black. So he plays f4, and Rapport develops the queen, putting a bit of pressure on the center maybe. And he doesn't take the bishop, and that's because the bishop isn't going anywhere, so this knight is now more powerful than the bishop. And if the bishop could get a getaway square, then he would take the bishop. And now a crazy move of Nodirbek, g4. He just says, I don't want to play a normal game, I want to checkmate you. I'm gonna play g4, f4, shred open the king, and then maybe castle long and checkmate the king. Rapport principle: if someone attacks you on the flank, attack them in the center. And Nodirbek takes, and after bishop b5 he gambits this pawn. Nodirbek takes the pawn. Now the knight takes the bishop, pawn takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. With check you can block because you lose the rook, so the king moves up. He doesn't castle because he knows it's also gonna be safe on f2, there are no checks. Maybe I'm even going to g3. Now the bishop takes, and the knight takes, and now his pawn structure is also damaged. So I have a 3 and 2 on 2, and I have 3 pawns connected, and you have this pawn island. Also I have the bishop, and my rook comes in really fast, check, and the king moves even further to the center. Great move, attacking the queen, getting the rook in the game. And Nodirbek just offers a queen trade and says, this endgame is better for me, and now I'll win this. The knight centralizes. He says, take my bishop, because in a rook endgame I'm the only one having pressure. And now Rapport castles, activating the rook, getting the king to safety. Nodirbek throws his other pawn also forward to maybe even attack the king, or just in the future he wants to promote one of these pawns. The rook offers a trade, take, and now the bishop centralizes, and the king comes forward. The rook goes to the center, the knight drops back, and now he offers another rook trade, and Rapport accepts the trade. So now we have a bishop versus knight endgame. But how is anyone gonna win there? Because even if he loses this pawn, he will have one pawn up, but the knight would just sacrifice for it, and the king and the bishop can checkmate. So let's see how he plays this. First the knight centralizes, and the king centralizes. One thing Nodirbek has going for him is he has very active pawns, and his king is also very active. This king is also on the second rank, and this king is right in the middle. The bishop is better in the endgame because it's a long range piece than the knight, and these pawns could be used to freeze up some other pawns. So g6 chosen to just stop these 4 maneuvers, and the bishop gets in, stopping these pawns from going forward. And now h5 takes, and this move you don't want to take here, because you just help a white getting active, getting close to this pawn. That's why he moves the knight back, because if you take me, I'll activate my king, and now I'm threatening the pawn, and you can take it because my knight defends it. So it takes, gets active, and the bishop drops out. Just defend the pawn in the future, keep an eye over there. Knight centralizes. Now the bishop just drops back, looking at these squares, so the knight can attack this pawn, and he just plays it slow. The bishop controls now all the forward squares of the knight, so it's a really nice bishop. And b5, another waiting move. The bishop drops in, trying to maybe go the other round, and here, great move, the king moves, because the knights get out of center, so this is freed up, so it can walk right over to the pawn, and if you win it, you have a threat to walk your king up with the pawn. Knight takes the bishop, bishop drops back, h5, trying to look for this, or maybe this, but the king goes and attacks the pawn, and great move. You don't want to take this, because then it's added to be a draw, because this one would just be sacrificed. The knight would just sacrifice for this pawn, and then you're not gonna win this pawn because it's on a light square. My king is closer, so that's why you can take. So he pushes, great move. The knight reroutes because it isn't doing anything over here. King takes, the knight centralizes, attacking the bishop. The bishop has to defend the pawn from another distance. The king gets this king inside, so the king can move out of the way of this pawn, so you can promote the pawn if your king is blocking it, right? Nodirbek just pushes this pawn, the knight reroutes, trying to go after the pawn. The king moves up, looking at this square, and then he can push. Knight attacks the bishop, bishop goes, and he takes the pawn, also now having a threat of his own. And there goes the pawn, and bishop is attacked, drops back, the knight comes around, the king moves, the knight has to go try and stop this pawn, because otherwise it would just be a queen and it's game over. There it stops the pawn, great move, stopping this pawn from going forward. Knight check, king going further, and now the bishop attacks the knight, because it's important to know, if you push the pawn, this is a draw, because the king just runs to this bishop, and eventually you have to sacrifice the bishop for the pawn, and that's not winning. So that's why he first attacks the knight. He wants to eliminate the knight, so then he can queen. And our board says, go, take the knight, because if you take it, I will push my pawn. So after takes, I push, you push, I queen first. Then after your queen, I take your queen, and my king will go to this way, and you will lose. But after bishop takes and h6, there's an incredible move. Try to find it. Bishop f6, trying to stop the pawn from promoting, and after takes, you push, and you can queen, because your queen will check, winning the queen in the other corner. Amazing, right? So after this move, he just resigned because he knows it's over. And also after h7, it's a draw. So that's important to know. And one last important thing, if you take this with the bishop, it's also a draw. Because of king g6, you can defend this pawn. If you push it, I'll win it. So that's why the game ended after this amazing move. And thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.